Hello, welcome to Football Journeys, a B5 consultancy podcast presented by me, Matt Himsworth.
And me, Fraser Franks. Football Journeys is a podcast that ignores the glitz and the glamour of the beautiful game in favour of the pain, the graft and the rejection.
For my part, I've been a media lawyer for nearly 20 years now, and I work with clubs and I work with players to help protect their reputation, their privacy, but ultimately it's about protecting the well-being of the young men and women that go through that journey through the game that we love.
And for me, I've been through that journey. I was an academy player at Chelsea and Brentford before setting on a career in the lower leagues with the likes of Luton Town, Stevenage and Newport County, before my career ended at the age of 28 owing to a heart defect.
B5 Consultancy is about combining that experience to help players young and old to make good decisions off the pitch, but also to be there to support players when life doesn't go according to plan.
In this series, we're talking to Liverpool FC's class of 2013-14. Those lads that came through that famous academy at Kirby but didn't quite make it through to realise their Anfield dream.
This is Football Journeys. This week we're at the halfway stage of the series, so we've decided to deliver a bonus episode. In pulling together the main episodes and talking through the lads' stories, we've been lucky enough to speak to some sage voices from within the game. From those that work with the lads at the academy, like Rangers first team coach Michael Beale, to Liverpool legend Jamie Carragher, and some other ex-Liverpool players like Dejan, Lovren and Conor Coady, as well as a fan's eye view from John Gibbons at the Anfield Wrap. There are some great points and stories provided by these fellas, and we've got a pretty full episode here which we think is very much worth your time. All the interviews were recorded remotely, including with Dejan Lovren. He was sat in his Croatian training camp before he played against France earlier this year. Of course, because it's on Zoom, we apologise for any poor sound quality, but we do feel as though that's outweighed by the quality of the points that are made. We hope you enjoy.
Ex-Liverpool academy coach and current Rangers first team coach Mick Beale gave some advice to young players and his thoughts on the academy system.
The big thing that you've got to manage with young kids is the black hole. So the black hole in under 23s is the manager don't pick young kids. It's shit here. They always play the seniors. Why is this boy coming in on more money than me? Why is he on this? Why is he on that? That's the black hole. So the only way you can keep the players out the black hole is having a staff that spread themselves out. So if you've got 20 players, rather than you managing 20, you manage 5 each. And you sit with them and you have that conversation like, where are you and where are you going? And when they're saying, oh, it's crap here, why am I not getting this chance? And they're like, all right, man, what are you doing every day? What are you doing today about how are you making your strengths a super strength? How's your diet? How's your lifestyle? You know, all these things. When was the last time you went and spoke to the nutritionist or the fitness coach? When was the last time you asked someone to go through your clips? So you've got to try and keep these, I call it like spinning plates. So you're spinning 17, 18 and all the heads are about to fall off. It's no different to first team management in my experience now at Rangers and Sao Paulo, but it's much more sensitive because it's before the boys have made it. And what I would say is when you're a young kid and your youth team coach says to you, work on this, this and this, you may think he's wrong, but in the back of your mind there's a doubt. If you don't do what he says, I'm not going to make it. When you're at the first team level and you're working with a millionaire that's international, maybe a captain, you're now giving them a suggestion. And that player has either got a drive that he will take that suggestion on and run with it, but it does come down to that individual player's drive because they might feel very comfortable. They've got the life they always wanted. They've got the house, the family, the car, the status. They're 27. You're telling them to stay out and do extra and kick on. Because I think when you're at under 23s level, it's like the team you've always dreamed of being in, but the team you can't get out of. It's like quicksand. So you go under 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, 16s, you get in the youth team. Everyone's desperate to get in the reserves or the 23s because it's in the stadium, it's on Liverpool TV, but you can't get out of it. So you've got boys the same age, like Ben Woodburn at the time was a young one. He was a first-year scholar playing in the first team training with me, but you'd have Mamadou Sakho in the same changing room. Then you'd have all the bits in between. So from 28 to 32 to 17. So all you're managing is pathways. So with the young kids, you have to talk every day about what their pathway might be. I certainly think that what's really important in the academy system now, if I've got 2 sons, and if one of them was in the academy system, it's pathway. So is it better to be at Liverpool, maybe a stronger academy in terms of name and in terms of coaching, or is it better to be at a lesser one where your pathway is clear? Declan Rice, when I was at Chelsea, the year that I left, gets released from Chelsea, lands at West Ham. Chelsea now reportedly might buy him back. I don't think Declan Rice would be the player he is today without being released.
We asked former Liverpool Academy product and current Wolves and England international Conor Coady if players staying in the under-23 system for too long was an issue.
It's not necessarily a problem, but I think it can kill some young players now to do that. Do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. I always remember playing with a lad called Tom Thorpe, and he was at Manchester United, mate. Honestly, he was a brilliant player. Centre half, real good. I used to play against him all the years growing up, and honest to God, he was a top draw player. And I used to always think to myself, he'll play at the top level. And he played with Michael Keane, who's obviously now at Everton, done fantastically well, played for England, all this sorts of things. I think he's a great player. And I played against Tom all the way growing up, and he was actually captain of that 19s Euros that I was talking about before. And he then stayed at I remember going out to Sheffield. I went to Huddersfield. I started off at Wolves. So I've been playing 3 years by this point. And he was still captain in Manchester United 21s or whatever it was. And he was my age. And I remember thinking to myself, God, like I expected Tom to go on and play at the highest level. I thought he was that good. Do you mean? But then all of a sudden, I've played 3 years. The lads who I played with have played 3 years. And you're looking at Tom and he was still captain of Manchester United in the 21s or whatever it was. So I think that goes to show, like, I don't know, maybe advice or maybe people who were helping him or whatever, because I can't say it was always down to Tom because he was a brilliant player. But I always remember that just an example of someone who I played with at the time, and then obviously him staying at Manchester United a lot longer than he probably wanted.
Liverpool legend Jamie Carragher broke into the first team at the age of 18, but would he have stayed around to wait for his chance if it had come later on and in his early 20s?
No, I'd have left. 100%. I love football too much. I couldn't not have my boots on every week and not be playing. I mean, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have allowed it to happen. I won't allow it to happen to my son. It won't happen. I'm a big believer in playing at the level you're at. I'm not a big fan of players who be squad players the whole life. I hate them. I say I hate them. I don't hate them individually, but I just hate the concept of it. Third choice keepers, players who say they've won all kinds of trophies and they were sub, pisses me off, and I just got no respect for them at all. And I don't believe they have won anything. Even in the Liverpool squad now, I've won the league or I've won the Champions League. No, you didn't. You're not good enough to be in a team who wins the league. You're good enough to be a squad player, but I could have done that. I could have done that for Real Madrid or Barcelona. No problem. I won everything, or Champions League every year. You know, that for me, where's your level? That would be my advice to my son or any young player. Don't hang around pretending you're a Liverpool player till you're 21, 22, and you've got a nice car and you've got a few quid. Get out. You're not a Liverpool player. You're not a Liverpool player till you play in the first team, and you play regularly in the first team. So, I mean, for me, I've always believed that everything's a 2-year process, and it's like you're in the youth team for 2 years, then you're in the. I think if you're in any team building up to a first team for more than 2 years, you've got to leave. Because it's stunting your development. You can only be in the youth team for 2 years. You can only be in the 23s for 2 years maximum. And if you're not then going to the first team, what's the point? I see these kids at Everton and Liverpool, and they're playing with the 23s, and they're 21 and 22, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Leave. It doesn't. There's no embarrassment of like, I never made it at Everton or Liverpool. My son's left Liverpool. He got released. He's at Wigan now. He's flying. He's doing really well. I don't think he is embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed by it. You know, it's amazing what he's done or what any kid does to be in an academy from 6 till 18. And if he finishes then, you've done amazing. How many other kids have done that and met mates and kept fit and made contacts and, you know, and you go again or whatever it may be. But for me, I'd always want to be a good player at a level I played at. I'd never want to feel like I was out of my depth. I'd never be sub. I've never been sub in my life. And you know, from the age of 5, whatever team I played in, I wouldn't accept being sub. I'd put as much pressure on a coach or a manager as possible to play me. But, you know, if you're not good enough, really at that level, go and find your level and be one of the best players in that team every week, wherever, if that was the Championship, if that was going lower down, non-league, wherever that may be. Listen, I know financial stuff comes into it now and again. I get that. I mean, the only time I was subbing my career, I was 33, 34 at Liverpool under Kenny Dalglish, the last 18 months of my career. But I was at the end of my career. I wasn't going to, you know, say I'm leaving Liverpool to go and have 18 months at Wigan. Roberto Martinez was trying to get me at the time and played near the bottom of the Premier League. I'd have still probably played more games at Liverpool through injuries and cup games and that. So that was a no-go. But if I was 23 or 27 and I wasn't playing every week for Liverpool, I'd have left 100%.
These thoughts are echoed by Conor Coady, who felt he needed to step away from Liverpool to kickstart his career.
Sometimes you have to be realistic enough to say to yourself, I need to do something else here. It's going to be too hard for me, this. And I think it takes a good person to say, listen, I need to come away. I'm not good enough for this. And at the time, I wasn't good enough for it. And I'm big enough and ugly enough to say that about myself. I weren't close enough to that level, and it was important that I stepped back. So I was always realistic. And loads of people ask me in interviews and that now, mate, was it hard? I bet it was hard for you to leave Liverpool. And honestly, it wasn't, because, don't get me wrong, I supported them all my life. It was something that I knew growing up I wanted to do, but I got to the point where, like I said, I was realistic about my chances and my situation there. And a few of the other lads will say the same thing, how hard it is to make it there. But once I went to Huddersfield and Sheffield, I never once thought to myself, I'll get to this level. It was all about just playing for the moment and playing in the present. And luckily I'd done that. They were great clubs that I went to. I'd like to say that. I think that was important, that we picked, and people who was helping me at the time picked good clubs for me to go to, because they helped me massively. They were filled with brilliant people. Honestly, they were very honest with me, the clubs I was going to. And I played a lot of games for both of them, Sheffield United and Huddersfield. And like I said, I can't speak highly enough of them. And then I was obviously lucky enough a year later after Huddersfield, a club the stature of Wolves come in for me. And obviously since then it's been brilliant as well.
Mick Beale spoke about being a mentor with good values to guide some of these Liverpool youngsters through their academy journey.
It's a key part of your job as a role model to stay in these boys' lives. Now, listen, I don't think you can interfere, but I think what you can be is a guide next to them. And I think, it's important that not all the players are going to... It's easy to stay next to a Trent Alexander. It's easy to stay next to a Harry Wilson. It's whether... But I think as a football coach, you'll trade off the fact that you was a good person to everyone, or you was honest. I think the honesty is more important than whether they think you're a good person or not. Because I think sometimes when you're a football coach, it's hard for someone to think, if you've got a squad of 20, then there's 9 every week that don't think you're such a good person. But it's the honesty over time you trade off. And I think that I pride myself in that in all the clubs that I've been at, that you still communicate with these young lads. And you're a guide. I would say I see myself as a guide next to them rather than a coach standing in front of them. You're investing in that kid's journey, and it's there's a lot of kids in our clubs, in our clubs up and down the country, but it's their life. Sometimes we talk about young players and kids like this 10 a penny, one out, one in, but it's that person's life, and it leads to, as I'm sure you're finding, some trauma in some of them and some deep thoughts, and it actually shapes the rest of your life.
A big theme on the podcast is of young players making their senior debuts. We asked Conor Coady about his first taste of first-team football, which came with Liverpool in Europe.
I'll be honest with you, that was all it was for me, a tick-off. I'll be honest with you, I look back to it and I think, the first game was, I look back and I think I played rubbish. Honestly, I was that nervous, I was shaking before the game, it was hard, and it weren't even like the first Liverpool team. It weren't your Gerrards and Suarez's and things like that. It was like a second string team, but it was a proud moment. It was something I'd worked for all my life. But that was all it was for me, a bit of a tick off. Because like I said, I look back to it now and I think I got brought off halfway through the second half. And it's like, Jesus, it was great. I loved every part of it. And like you said, I've got the shirt in the house and no one can ever take it away from me. But I just wish I'd have done more. Do you know what I mean? That's what you think. But it's hard because I don't know how old I was, 18, 19, whatever it was. And you're out in Russia. You never imagine it to be like that because it was against Andy. Family weren't there. And then, like I said, I was shaking in the changing before the game. I was lined up in the tunnel. I've got Samuel Eto'o next to me. And big Chris Samba, if you remember big Chris Samba, who played for Blackburn. And these players were there. And then Roberto Carlos was the assistant manager there. Gus Hiddink was the manager. I'm stood there thinking, wow, this is mad. Do you know what I mean? So there was just thinking back, there was too many things going on in my head. And like I said, I look back on it and I tick the box. Amazing, fantastic. It was something no one can ever take away from me. But do I wish I'd have done more? Yeah, because I weren't used to getting brought off in the middle of the second half, and I did. And I look back now and I think, oh, freaking hell, I wish I'd done a little bit more, really.
Mick Beale speaks about the race to 100 games and players finding their level.
We used to talk about the race to 100. So we always say after 100 games, football tells you what level you should be at. So you can make a debut in the Premier League and end up in League Two, or make a debut in League Two like a Dele Alli and end up in the Premier League. Roughly, we looked at 100 games. We built that off of Luis Suarez because he was at Nacional in Uruguay, Groningen, Ajax. He played 156 games at 24 to arrive at Liverpool. So if that was So if the 18, 19-year-old Luis Suarez weren't good enough for Liverpool, what would make Louis Robles or Jerome Sinclair or these boys? So we felt you had to go and have a career before a career. That might be on loan or elsewhere. We also looked at Liverpool's first team squad, and it's something that I did recently here with our B team, who was ready for Liverpool's first team at 18, 19, and what did they have to do? So there was great examples in that, like Adam Lallana, who had been at Southampton down the leagues and had had a short loan at Bournemouth. So again, I would say go back and look at Liverpool's first team squad now that's just won the Champions League and the Premier League. How many of them were good enough to play for Liverpool at 19, 20? Where was Mo Salah? Where was Firmino? Where was Mane? They've all grown to get to Liverpool. Where was Wijnaldum? So I don't think we should hold it against these players that they've not made it. They're making their career now. And if they keep continuing and kick on, one of them will be an Adam Lallana. One of them will be a Lambert who came, later at 16, released from Liverpool, turns up there at 29 as an England international.
Jamie Carragher told us about how being prepared was vital to him making the most of his Liverpool breakthrough.
I always remember something Stefan Henshaw said to me. And he always said to me, it's not luck, you were ready. And I think it's being ready to take that piece of, whether you call it fortune or luck, because what happened to me was, my debut, I was supposed to play centre-back. And the night before, this is the real story actually, the day before the game, Roy Evans gives the team, we're doing a bit of practice at Melwood, I'm playing centre-back. But we've got a player there, a foreign player called Bjorn Cavani, who's just signed and his clearance hasn't come through. His clearance came through at 5 o'clock on the Friday night. So I didn't have a mobile phone, nothing like that. Bjorn Cavani is now playing in the team and I'm on the bench. But I don't know. I still think I'm making my debut tomorrow, my full debut. I've come on sub twice. I go to bed that night thinking I'm playing. I'm not playing. I wake up in the morning. I get to Anfield at 11:30. Patrick Berg has gone down sick. And he's playing in midfield. So Roy Evans says to me in the morning, you're not playing centre-back, you're playing midfield. Now, if Berger doesn't go down sick, I'm on the bench that day. I now go into midfield. That means I'm probably going up for the corner. Maybe I'd be in on the halfway line. So that's what I'm talking about, little bits of luck being in the right place, but you've still got to then. So I was given that opportunity, but I still had to take the opportunity against Aston Villa in that game and play well, get the goal, little things go for you, and you just got to make the most of them. So you need a little bit of luck, but I wouldn't want those young players to feel like, oh, I've done everything I could, I was just unlucky. Be sitting in a pub or a restaurant and telling people, oh, he was lucky and he was lucky, I wasn't lucky. Make your own luck, make sure it doesn't happen, that's one chance. But people, I don't believe if that game against Aston Villa wouldn't have happened, I'd never played for Liverpool again. In my head, I think I'd have made sure I played for Liverpool. I'd have found a way. Nothing would have stopped me. Now, I understand some things do stop you if you sign Paolo Maldini, of course, really. But my mentality has always been, and I say to my son, don't ever have an excuse or like a couple of times, what they're like as kids, if someone else in the team's maybe training with the 23s and they're not, and they'll come back and have a little moan, why is it not me? And I'm like, I don't want to hear. Make sure it's you. Don't blame that kid's not done nothing. It's not his fault. He's been picked for a reason. Make sure it's you then next time. Don't be bitter, or don't ever be bitter or twisted or blame someone else. Look at yourself. What more can you do and get the best out of what you can do? Really. So that's always my thing with it. So I do think there is more than just ability and working hard. But I just think about being ready and making sure that when your chance comes, you are ready, you're switched on. Because you won't get too many chances. I keep hearing academy kids or people saying, oh, this manager never gave me a chance, or I only played 3 games. So now you've done well getting 3 games. Make sure they notice you in those 3 games. No one's going to get 20 games. Do not kid yourself one bit that a manager's going to give you 20 games to be a Liverpool player or a Chelsea player. It's not happening. There's too much at stake. You might get 2 or 3 games or 2 or 3 sub appearances. Train them every day. Make sure they notice you. And if they don't blame the manager. Don't say I wasn't given a chance. You were given a chance. You've just got to take it. You've got to, make sure you're ready to take it.
How important is communication in football? And is this something that players are underestimating?
I think now, communication is a dying thing. Not many people talk that much. And I think it's huge in football. I think you can help yourself so much with communication. And I don't think it's a hard thing to do. honestly. So I remember from a young age, my dad saying to me, listen, talk and talk and talk. Even if you're talking rubbish, just talk. Let people hear you. Let people know you're on the pitch. Even if you're having a bad game, they'll still see you on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So talk and talk and talk as much as you can. And if you do it, you'll make the game easier for you. And it was something I'll always remember, just because I feel like something like that is easy to do. I don't know why more people don't do it. Because you can help yourself by doing it as well, bringing people into positions, little signs of encouragement, making sure you're helping people. And I think that was the biggest thing with me, just trying to help people, whether it be at a young age or even now. Just making sure I was helping people, because I look back on it, and whether you can call it being mentally strong or whatever, it was something where, like I said, I always knew what I was capable of. I always knew there was better players than me, but I always knew that I'd hang in there as much as I possibly can to give myself the best possible chance. And luckily I'd done that. But like I said, there's a few things I looked at from a young age, and my dad obviously looked at from a young age, just to say, listen, get better at that, because they're quite easy to do. If you get better than that, not many people do it.
A couple of things that I find frustrating is young kids, when they leave school, really find it hard to speak for themselves. They really find it hard to say, so if you stood in front of a young kid now and he wants a scholarship, the agent would come in and say, I want a 3-year contract. If you called the kid in and said, why are we giving you a scholarship? Why would, Glasgow Rangers or whoever in the world, AC Milan, why would we give you a contract? You want the kid to say it, because I'm a goal scorer, I'm a goal creator, I'm going to work my socks off, this is my dream and I won't let you down. Because if that's your son and he's not getting a football scholarship, he's going to be a lawyer, or he wants to go and be an estate agent, he'll have to do an interview. I think we make muted kids for our education program from 12 to 16 in schools, and then when they leave, I'm not saying we need loads of Ibrahimovic who say they're going to be the best ever, and it's, but I want our kids to actually say, no, I'm a goal scorer, goal creator, I'm working every day to improve this, and this is what, and I won't let you down, Gaffer. Because I think you buy into personality and character. So we always say to young players, when we bring you over to the first team, we're rubber stamping you. The senior players will pick you. And Fraser, you've been in many a dressing room. It's when the young players, the seniors, want them in the team, that's when they've arrived.
And that's something I push with my son a lot, about talking and being loud on a pitch. I said, every time you go on a football pitch, there's someone on the side of the pitch watching you. From another club, from a scout, maybe national, who knows? You don't know who's there. But make sure that person goes away and make sure he remembers you on that pitch, whether it was good, but whatever it may be, make sure you stand out. And a big thing is being loud, being aggressive, having a presence on the pitch. Because I do think that's lacking, I think, in a lot of players. Or not so much lacking, I just think it's different now. I think people are a lot more wary of pulling people or criticising each other, falling out with friends. I think it's a lot nicer and maybe better in a lot of ways. We talk about now the way a lot of people were brought through in my day and age of, jobs and punishments for certain things with YTS players. I think it's the right thing that all that's gone.
For every player, there will need to be a second career after football. No matter how much money you could potentially make, you'll need a new purpose and something that gets you out of bed in the morning. We asked the guys if they had a plan, or have a plan, in the case of Conor Coady.
Before I got to probably the age of 30, I was going to be a manager. And everyone in our dressing room would say, Carragher, 100% manager, because I love football more than anyone. I watch more football, read about more football than anyone. But the closer I got to it, I did have a plan in place. And I just looked at it and I thought, a coach is going to move job every 2 years. I've never moved house. I've never moved my family. They've had to put up with me highs and lows throughout my career. Am I really now going to say I'm going to go and coach Leeds? I'm going to coach Fulham. I'm going to go here. Am I going to start moving my family around? No. And do I want to be away from my family? No. So it was either a job at Liverpool or go into the TV. So I always had that in mind. The role I'm in now, something I used to always look at. I always looked at going into the TV, I must be honest, when I was playing. And I used to love the fact that Alan Hansen and Andy Gray, who were the two big pundits at the time, were not remembered as footballers. And I love that in some ways because they'd made another career for themselves. And I almost wanted that for myself. I mean, I'm proud of what I've done in football and I'd love people to remember me, but I just know football moves on, younger people get involved in the game. And I always saw what came after football as not the end, as almost the start, I would say. And I think I'm quite, me personally, I think I'm quite fortunate that I just have a mindset that that I'll always be okay, or I'll be okay. And I know it's easy for me to say that now because I'm working for Sky and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say I was looking at 32, 33 worrying. I definitely wanted to have a plan in place. Going forward, whether that was coaching. I started doing my badges, and like you, Fraser, I didn't get the bug for the coaching. I was doing my badges, my Beale license. I was coaching John Flanagan's age group, who were about under 15s, under 16s at the time at the academy. I remember going up to the academy in the car and thinking, I can't wait till this is over.
Now I think about it a lot. Honestly, hopefully, if I'm carrying on playing sweeper, mate, I might play till I'm about 45. So we'll see. But no, I think about it a lot. And I'm talking now. This might change. Listen, I'm 27. Like you said, you still got a few years left or whatever. I'd love to, and I've only thought this properly since our manager come in, because I love the way he works. I love the way he does things. I love the way he sets us up. I love the way he's got to make big decisions. And since he come in, I've always said to myself, I'd love to have a crack at being a manager. I'd love it. I don't know, just to test yourself, to be in that pressurised environment. So I've been in that pressurised environment now for whatever it is, 9-10 years. And there's nothing better. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing better. And I think just to stop that when you finish, it's going to be hard to get your head around. Do you know what I mean? And I understand different ways are for different people. And I love the punditry work. I love obviously doing Monday Night Football with Carragher. I love doing the stuff on Sky and different things. That's amazing. That's incredible. But just talking now, it might change in 2 or 3 years. And I might go, well, it's not for me, management. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. But at the minute and where I am at the minute, I think I'd love to have a crack at making decisions and hopefully being a good one. But I wouldn't do it if I'm a rubbish one.
We've now got this video clip which will go viral when you get
go viral. But like I said, mate, I've put in there. I've saved myself a little bit by saying it might change in a couple of years.
I left Charlton at 20, where I was deemed a very, very talented young player. I didn't break through the year where he was in the Premier League. I couldn't break through. And I spent 2 months in the pub after that, not sure what to do. Went to America, spent a bit of time at QPR, a little bit of time at Brentford, and then ended up buying a franchise of a futsal academy. And it leads to where I am today. But there was a 3 or 4 month period where I didn't know what to do with myself. Sometimes the people that have been working with you are the hardest people to speak to as well. They're actually the people that can help. But you, as a young person, find it hard to speak to them. Do you know what I mean? So I know I'm going around it, but obviously this is a topic that you're delving into, and I've had quite a lot of experience in it.
Lots of players can struggle financially after retirement. Jamie Carragher admits he was in a very fortunate position, but can see how players could end up facing financial difficulty.
Now, I was lucky in that I played for the top club, and great money, had a great lifestyle. But it is a shock when that money it's like the last time you get paid by the club, boom, that's it. And then don't get me wrong, I went to a really good wage at Sky, but it was still completely different to what I was earning with Liverpool. And it's almost like a psychological impact. Really. And I always remember in my first couple of years at Sky, I had a Range Rover car. And at one stage I was thinking, I need to sell my car here. And this is costing me too much a month, and this is costing me that, and it's that. Because the money's still coming out for other things that you're paying for, or your house, or, you had a cleaner and different. And before you know it, you're thinking, fucking hell, you know what's going on here? But I end up going through my actual bills, and I was paying about 4 people's fucking Sky bill in the family. Beforehand when you don't even check, because it's just like, something's coming out with Sky. And I actually went through it all. What is that for? What is that for? So even me, who's in a very fortunate position, I was still going through that bank statement when as I'd finished, as I probably wouldn't have done for about 5 years, 10 years before, because of that impact of financial. So I can only imagine what it's like for players less fortunate, lower down the scale. Now I can totally understand why people get into financial problems. People are trying to keep up with another player or certain players, maybe trying to still impress the family or the wife or whatever it may be. And I can see where the problems occur now. So I'm a lot more sympathetic now that I've finished.
We asked John Gibbons of the Anfield Wrap how important having local lads in the team is.
You can't say that it's vital to have a Scouser in the team, but I think the way I describe it is it's the icing on the cake. It's the thing that makes that team even more special. If there is someone in there who's who's from the area that you are. And then we were all quite territorial about them as well. So now Curtis Jones is the new one. He's a South Liverpool boy, so us from the South End are all loving him, you know. Obviously, Heighton have got Steven Gerrard, Beale's Jamie Carragher, you know. So if he's from your specific area as well, then you're even more kind of fond of him, and you say, oh no, he's one of our boys, do you know what I mean? To sort of everyone else, even sort of in the city, you know. Obviously, Robbie Fowler famously toxed it, and so it's even more sort of localised than that in terms of, you know, the pride. But I think for all of us, you know, when there is a young Liverpool lad in the team, it does make a difference, and that's because you want young people in the city to feel like it is possible.
Yeah.
And that's the really nice thing about Trent, for example, and the quote he said is that makes kids in the city think, well, maybe I can do it. And even at a young age, you know, it's going to be hard, but, you know, kids should go believing that they can play for Liverpool. And, you know, at one point that belief, you know, will evaporate, you know, when reality hits. But, you know, for most of us, but you know, for kids in the city, they should dream that it is possible. And I think players, you know, like Trent, like Stevie, you know, I say like Robbie before them, all sorts of make that possible. And I think not just that, but also I think once they are there, I think they can make a big difference in terms of, you know, so we talked about, you know, you maybe mentioned Carragher before and Gerrard, you know, they were at the club pretty much. Well, Jamie was for his whole career. Steven Gerrard, you know, did a bit in LA towards the end, but it was pretty much both one club men. And, you know, when things are going great, everyone wants to play for you, don't they? But then things start to go badly, people start to look elsewhere. And you can't really blame people for that because they've got the careers. But when it was all going really well under Benitez, you know, we were attracting all the superstars and Torres wanted to come and, you know, all these Spanish boys. But obviously when it started to go wrong, you know, they start drifting off to other places because they want to win stuff. But, you know, it's Gerrard and Carragher who stay and who make the most of it, and who, you know, without them, it could have been awful. Do you know what I mean? It could have been sort of really bad. And so I think generally, you know, these you know, the local boys, the boys who've got the football club really in the blood will stick it out a bit more through thick and thin as well. And so that's good, because it's not always going to be brilliant at any football club really, and they're going to be tough times. And I think that's when you need your local lads more than ever.
Jamie Carragher and John Gibbons talk about players having to grow up quickly.
It's funny, I remember reading something and it just stuck with me, is that when you're a footballer and you're 27, 28, or certainly when I was a kid and you're looking up at footballers at that age, you think they're like a man. You think they're a real man. They're, you know, they know everything. But really, when your son's 28 or a normal fella in the local pub is 28, you still think he was a young lad. Whereas footballers are seen as, when they get to sort of 30, 35, is this big, rounded, old... You're almost seen as old in football terms, but then people forget how young you are and how much life there is still to go, and how important that second sort of career or wherever it may be after you're a player is. Because, as I said, I didn't feel like you know, when I look at my dad, I see a man. I don't think I probably felt like a man until I was probably in my 30s or when I'd retired, really. You're still a young lad, and I think the responsibility that we put on footballers and expect of them to behave, or certainly when they're a youngster. I mean, anyone else out of that, we wouldn't expect the same sort of standards, I think. It's just because I think the career finishes at 35, that's the old bit. So if you're 25, you're in the middle. You're almost like a middle-aged man in terms of a football sense. And I just think it does help you grow up, I must say, as a footballer. But I do think it's important to have something in mind.
They are just boys, and the older that I get, unfortunately, the more you sort of realise that. I mean, we do little bits obviously with the players now. We're lucky enough, and when you're with them, you're like, oh, I feel like his dad now. Do you know what I mean? And it's strange because you look up to them. So I'm older than all the Liverpool players now, but if I meet James Milner, I'm like, you know, looking at someone like James Milner, like not just an amazing footballer, but I think everything he's achieved and how he conducts himself and what he is as a leader and a person. And, he's 4 or 5 years younger than me, but you don't sort of associate that in your head because the people you look up to as well. And so I think taking footballers off the pedestal a little bit isn't a bad thing, and we should idolise players that are talented, and we should always love these players that we go and support. But at the same time, remember that just because they've got an amazing football talent, it doesn't mean that they've got everything together, or that they're supremely confident in every way, or that they don't have sort of bad days like everyone else.
We asked some of our contributors on their thoughts on social media and some of the issues faced, starting with ex-Liverpool defender Dejan Lovren.
Personally, it's tough. I'm, like you said, I'm a human being with emotions, and who cares, first of all, about my family. And when you see some, even if they're idiots, far away, scrolling down and texting you, they will, I don't know what they will do with your family. And because of a mistake of a goal, what I did, and maybe I'm proud of that today, because that's why I am today who I am. It doesn't feel good, but in my personal point of view, it makes me always stronger, to be honest. I always take this part of negativity, I put it on the pitch, and I show even more my passion, I show my aggressivity, and I show even more the love to football and to the fans, that I care. But also I will not forget about that, and this is how it's building up my character. I never mentioned to anyone, I had a psychologist. It affected me in the beginning when I was 20, 21, when I was in France, and I saw all these comments, and I thought myself, is it this real? I mean, I'm giving 100% on the pitch. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But, I'm true to myself, and I want to come out of the pitch 100% satisfied with myself. Yeah. And when I know that, then I know these words will not affect me. So I'm proud. I'm really proud what I went through. So one day I said to a couple of my good friends, I will write a book, and people will be shocked what I went through, and because they don't know me 100%, and even now I feel people respect me even more after they found out all these refugee things. I'm glad that they understand about these refugees, but it's just a little part of my life.
They're thinking, I'm just having a laugh, but also, he won't care. He plays for Liverpool, or he won't care, or he won't even see it. I don't think there's necessarily any. I think even when people tweet people directly, I still don't think they expect them to see it, which is crazy, because you've added them in and you've sent it directly to them. And all young people are on social media a lot, so obviously footballers are going to be the same. But I think, as I say, when people do, every now and again, a footballer will just call it out, won't they, and just say this is unacceptable. And I think that the person who's done it, who's often young themselves, it should be pointed out as well. Like, it almost kind of like, aghast that there's been some sort of repercussions, really, that they think, it's just mouthing off in the pub or whatever, or it's just sort of having a laugh with your friends. But I think hopefully we can get to a point where we realise that, for young footballers, look, that they are fortunate because they're doing what they love, but at the same time, it's a pressured environment. At the same time, they are still finding the way in life as much as the sort of careers, really. And if you're feeling down about something, or you're having a bad day, or you're struggling, the last thing in the world you need is something like that, or someone feeling like, everyone's picking on me, everyone's sort of out to get me, really. And if you've got sort of self-doubt in your head, that things can only multiply it. But I just don't think people think.
understand why people are on social media. I do get it. I do understand that it's a big part of life now, and I think everyone's life. I think everybody can say that it's a massive part of life. But I think in terms of myself, it was something I never wanted that to distract me. Do you know what I mean? I was kind of, from a young age, I always thought to myself, I want to try and give me all to try and get to being a footballer. That was all I ever wanted to do, and I didn't really want to do things that kind of distracted me from doing that. And some people might say, "Oh, you're being a bit daft there. It's only social media, it's things online," but I just didn't want that part of it. That was just something that I always said to myself. And as I got up, it got even stronger. Like, I get people now messaging me about trying to look after social media for me and different things. And it's just something I've never really been interested in, even more so now with my children. I don't really want my children seeing things of me online, because I'm sure when they get older, they'll want an Instagram and they'll want a Twitter and all this sorts of things. And if I've got one, they're seeing people having a little pop at me or whatever, I don't want them to see that. I'd rather their life be private and them enjoy their life growing up, and if I can tell them not to be on social media, I will do, whether they listen to me. I don't really know, but it was something at 18, 19, mate, whenever I spoke to you about it, it was something I never really wanted anything to distract me, and that's still the case now. To be honest, I'm still playing. So
I just think that thing of getting on the bus after you've had a bad defeat, you've had a bad game, we all check our phone. I check my phone after Monday Night Football. What's the reaction been to what we did on certain teams, on games? And it's not just, and to be fair with me, because I'm a lot older now, it doesn't bother me if someone says Jamie Carragher's a cunt. It doesn't bother me one bit. It's more actually, was the analysis good or was it? And then you actually think, and I can deal with that. And more often than not, it's good feedback, if I'm being totally honest. But for me, I used to remember when I was a kid, it was just about the local paper, the Liverpool Echo. And there'd be a letters page in there every week, and you couldn't help but read it. And if there was a critical thing in there about yourself, so I read it right into Tommy Smith, Jamie Carragher needs to be replaced, and he'd give an answer underneath. But that'd affect you, and it'd be in your head. Now, don't get me wrong, at times, criticism of me, I've used it to fuel me, but it's really took me to some dark places mentally. Even I mentioned before, Christian Ziege coming in to take my place. Every year, Liverpool signed a player who everyone thought was going to take my place. Mentally, that was so, I wouldn't say damaging, almost tiring. To almost think, right, I've got another fight. It wasn't where I'd almost give in, but it was almost like that. I had to have that focus every day in training where I'm competing with him. And it was exhausting, really. And that lasted for probably the first half of my Liverpool career. And then I felt a lot more secure once we'd won, Champions League, and I knew I was playing every week. I still never took my foot off the pedal, but that mental sort of torture of pushing myself all the time, every single day, was tough. And I just think for a player, you don't need to be reading comments from idiots on social media about your performance. And to be honest, you get that much shit even when you've played well, really. So you don't need to be reading it. So I would not go on social media. I'd probably have a social media account. I'm sure it'd help with the boot deal. It'd help with different things or whatever. But I think it's quite evident which players do it themselves and which ones don't. So I'd stay well clear of it.
Finally, we asked Conor Coady and Jamie Carragher if they had any advice for parents of aspiring academy players.
I think to be open-minded. I really do. Listen, I've got kids of my own. They're very, very young. They're not close to being an academy level. And I think as parents, all you think of is your kids, and it's all about them. It's all about my child. There's a lot bigger things going on at a football club the size of Liverpool. At every football club, I think there's a lot more things going on. And I think it's important for young people to adapt to different scenarios, to different ways of playing, to know that when you go up to train with the first team, to train with the reserve team, to train with an under-18s team where you're trying to improve and get better, it's always going to get harder. So I think it's important that kids have got to adapt these days, because I think you see a lot of it now. And like I said, my kids I've got kids of my own, but they're too young to be in an environment like that at the minute. And it's a tough environment. And I think parents and kids young now think to themselves, well, I'm at Liverpool, this is amazing. But I think it's important that you adapt and you're open-minded to everything that's coming, because it doesn't last forever. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be open to obviously different scenarios that come your way. And I think that's where the adaptation comes in, as a young person being able to adapt. And luckily I was okay doing that. And I think that's the biggest thing about it, I'll be honest with you. It's such a tough environment and it's getting harder, but it's important that you're realistic about what's going on. And listen, all them Liverpool players, all them young lads will want to play for Liverpool and want to play for these big clubs. And that's what you hope that they go on and do. because I've got a great chance of doing it. But it's really, really hard, honestly.
Don't build it up too much. Actually think what your son's doing right now is amazing. How many kids wants to be in an academy? You know, he's meeting mates, he's keeping fit, he's keeping off the street, he's not on his computer. Look at it that way rather than thinking he's going to play for the first team. I never once thought my son would play for Liverpool's first team when he was at Liverpool at 9 or 10. The way I looked at it was, it's like going to a private school for free. Rather than coaching or playing in the park, you go to Liverpool's academy, you get the best coaching, and if he's there till he's 18, what an education he's at, and then he'll go wherever he goes. Forget playing for Liverpool. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen for one every 3 or 4 years. It happened to me and Stevie. It's now Trent. What are we talking about? 3 players in 10 years? I don't know. So I'd always look at it as a private education, that he's at school, you've got a football club, you get to 18, and then you're in the best possible place to then go and play for X, Y, or Z. And that's the best way of looking. That's the way I've always looked at playing at an academy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Football Journeys, and thank you to all those who supported us. Do come and find us on social media at JourneysPod on both Twitter and Instagram, where we'll be sharing more content. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us on footballjourneys@b5consultancy.com or visit our webpage b5consultancy.com/footballjourneys.
This podcast is produced by B5 Consultancy alongside Ricky Valentine, who himself had an academy journey with me at Brentford FC. Special thanks goes to the Hope Street Hotel for their hospitality and Liverpool FC for supplying some of their archive footage.
Lastly, thanks to the lads for telling their stories and to the contributors who gave up their time to share their memories of the lads. Please do like and subscribe. If you feel we deserve a 5-star rating, then please give us one. The more successful this podcast is, the better chance we have of producing more episodes and further series.